Hey, everybody. It's John Henning here with the Franchise Radio Show. And boy, today we are in for a treat. We are joined today by Dan Durney, the Director of Franchise Development over at Assisting Hands Home Care. Dan, thanks for taking the time.
My pleasure. Thank you for setting us up today.
Yeah, it's good to catch up for sure. Before we jump into the business stuff, Dan, though, I'd like to give our listeners just a little bit of a background on you. Can you kind of walk us through, a 2-minute history of Dan Durney?
Only 2 minutes? Wow.
Yeah, you only got 2 minutes for that part. Yeah.
I live in Arizona. I was in IT for 17 years, got into franchising about 18 years ago after an IT career. And I'm married with 5 daughters, 12 grandkids, and I do stand-up comedy on the side.
Do you really?
Yep.
All right. That sounds great. All right. I like it. I do stand-up comedy all the time. I do franchising on the side, right? That's what my wife's like, you tell more jokes than Heinz has pickles, she says. I'm like, hey, I can't help it. I always tell everybody, if you can't laugh at yourself, call me and I'll laugh at you.
How generous of you.
Yeah, it's always nice little, to put it out there for everybody. But look, on the franchising side, you mentioned you were in IT for a long time. How did you actually get into franchising? Nobody just wakes up in the morning and says, today's the day I'm getting into franchising. There's always a little bit of a story, right?
So a friend of mine was in Arizona when I was here as well, and he was doing what I do now, which is franchise development. And he asked me to build a website and put a database together for him. And so I did that. And he started teaching me the franchise business, and about a year and a half in, my part-time franchise income equaled my full-time IT income, and I made the switch.
Look at that. All right. That is great. We love to hear how folks, got into franchising. I actually got in through an area developer. I was working in a retail store, and that company used to sell franchises also, and I worked for the area developer for that brand and then started selling franchises. That's actually how I got into it. So.
Yeah, some of our first clients were Massage ND and companies like that, so we had a really good run.
Sure. Let's talk a little bit about Assisting Hands Home Care. Tell us a little bit about the history of the company, where the company's come from, and what's going on here today.
Well, that's a great segue because I was actually involved at the very beginning of Assisting Hands. Started out with a lady named Gail Silverstein, who had 25 years of healthcare experience, healthcare management and administration, and she was looking for care for her father. She couldn't find any companies she felt comfortable with, so she started her own called Care Corner in the Phoenix market. About 3 years in, she had built a business of about $5 million a year gross revenue with 200 caregivers in 2 offices, and her emphasis was on well-trained caregivers. And we approached her to franchise her business model. She agreed to do that, and the investors for that project were 2 farmers and a dentist from Idaho. No industry experience whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
And so we put it together to do a franchise and found out that the name Care Corner was not available nationally, so it was changed to Assisting Hands.
Gotcha.
So I was on board. So I was on board for about the first 10 that came in to the system, and then I went on to do some other development, and I came back about 2.5 years ago.
Great. That's great. That's good. It's so funny how many times I'll talk to folks that I've known for a really long time in the industry, and there's almost always this circular pattern. Like I started out in doing franchise development and then moved and did some brokering and then back to franchise development. I've always circled into I've worked a lot in the automotive spaces, the real estate, mortgage, and insurance spaces, so always the service-oriented businesses, kind of where I've gravitated, right? And I've actually done quite a bit of business in the senior care sector as well over the years on the broker side, right?
Oh, excellent. I love working with brokers.
Tell us about the franchise itself. What really sets apart Assisting Hands from the rest of the industry? You've got all different types of the senior care industry out there. There's a lot of different verticals in that space. What really sets Assisting Hands apart from the rest of the crowd?
Well, as you mentioned, there's a lot of competition in our space. Last count that I saw was about 65 senior care franchises, most of which are in the in-home care sector. You have some that are in the placement, some are doing fitness for seniors,
Yep.
home renovations for seniors, but the bulk of the industry is in the home care space. So we feel like we set ourselves apart in 4 main areas. One would be we have a very strong family culture, like a legit family culture. We refer to our franchisees as the FOFO, the family of franchise owners. And we have a lot of acronyms in our company too. And we found that, especially during COVID, there was a lot of not only support from our national team, but just a community of franchisees helping each other. Oh, hey, we found gloves here. We found mats here. This is some things that you can do in this scenario. So there's a lot of sharing of best practices that goes on within the family and the intranet and et cetera. So our family culture is very palpable. Number 2 is we have an area representative opportunity, which is very rare. There's last time I checked, there were less than a handful of senior care franchises offering area rep model, or as you may have referred to it as area development. So in that scenario, there's an overlay of support that we provide by having an area representative in a market where they help support, really coach and mentor the franchisees that are in that market. We currently have 17, about to add 3 more across the country. The third would be our strong use of technology. We do a lot of things that help minimize the back office accounting for the franchisees. We have one franchisee doing $5.5 million with 170 plus caregivers, and they only need one person that can full-time that handles the billing, invoice, and payroll.
Wow, that's
a lot of strong efficiencies. And then the fourth is probably our biggest differentiator, and that is that we do not micromanage our franchisees' businesses. So I would characterize this differentiator as flexibility. We wholly subscribe to the guardrails versus train tracks model. And so if a franchisee wants to expand beyond the core business of in-home non-medical care targeted towards seniors, but if they want to offer post-op recuperation or servicing staffing, high-risk pregnancies where women are on bed rest before they give birth, special needs, Alzheimer's, dementia, even autism, a little bit of medical device sales even, and if they want to, although not many do, but if they want to get into the medical or skilled side, we also support that as well. Plus, on top of the services flexibility, we also assist a franchisee if they want to offer services for reimbursement from additional payor sources, in addition to private pay, which is the bulk of the revenue in the industry, as you know. But if they want to offer services for people who have benefits as a part of veterans benefits or long-term care disability or Medicaid, we can help with that as well. So that's how I would characterize our differentiators.
Yeah, I really like what you said there, Dan, about the guardrails versus the train tracks. That's important because, you know, a lot of companies, this is what we do, this is how we do it, and you'll like it or not, right? And it sounds like you guys are looking to help your franchisees grow, and I always like to use the word pivot, you know, when they find themselves gravitating towards something or they find something that they feel fits into their business model. It doesn't sound, while you have the benefits of franchising, it doesn't sound like every single location is exactly the same cookie cutter style, right?
Correct. It's very personalized. And frankly, there's a saying that says you're only as good as the caregiver you send in. And so really the emphasis needs to be on taking good care of the caregivers, and they'll take great care of the clients, regardless of what company you're part of.
Right. Let me ask you about the franchise owners themselves, because you mentioned the area development opportunity. Break it down for us. Who's your target franchise owner? Are you primarily focused on finding area developers? You're working with single unit operators? What's your target franchise owner?
Both. For a franchise owner, we're looking for franchisees that have business management skills and, even more importantly, people management skills. At the end of the day, the goal is to build that family organization within the franchise, same as is modeled by the franchisor across the franchisees. So business management skills, people management skills, and then probably most importantly, a heart for the business. As I like to say, with all due respect to Cold Stone Creamery, this isn't chopping ice cream. This is taking care of people's moms and dads.
Right.
And you really have to have a heart for the business. Having said that, none of our franchisees have ever run a senior care agency. We have some nurses, nutritionists, insurance people. Interestingly, we have several that came from public accounting and consulting businesses, like Pricewaterhouse and Deloitte and Touche. And last year we added 3 people from KPMG. So some companies add people from big pharma because they have that industry knowledge in the sales. But to my knowledge, I don't think we have anybody that came from big pharma in our industry. It's really people that have had some type of experience, even vicariously dealing with caregivers, or sometimes directly being the caregiver for someone in their family. You really just have to have a heart for the business.
That makes sense. Can you walk us through what a day in the life of a franchise owner looks like? Like, what are they actually doing every day?
So it depends on how the franchisee staffs their company, their agency, and some of that is also dependent upon state regulations. So in some cases, in some states, they require the administrator for the office to have some credentials like a nurse or senior care experience or home care supervisory experience, et cetera. So it kind of depends on some of the regulations in the state. But for the most part, a franchise owner is there's 3 departments. There's the internal ops/HR, which is the recruiting, hiring, and placing of the caregivers with the clients based on requirements. Mm-hmm. There's the accounting, and then there's the sales and marketing. And we tell franchisee, do what you do best and hire the rest. You're still going to oversee it, which, by the way, is a good time to mention this is not a semi-absentee or absentee type of business. This is a owner-operator business. And it's also office-based as opposed to home-based. So just to clarify a couple of things there. During the course of a day, a franchisee who has it properly staffed may be doing some marketing, going out and building relationships with case managers, discharge planners of skilled nursing facilities or hospitals, doctor's offices, things like that, just building the awareness of assisting hand services within the community, networking, events, things like that. They may be doing a home assessment, again, if their state allows them to do that depending on what's requirement. They're doing recruiting, interviewing, hiring, training of caregivers, and some of the accounting. So again, depending on where they are in their scale of their business, when they're starting out, they're probably wearing a lot of hats, and then they start building the staff to have those folks run the various departments there.
Well, I like what you said there about do what you do best and hire the rest. I mean, they might do everything in the beginning, of course, just like any small business owner would wear every hat in the beginning if they're smart, right? But over time, it sounds like they can, move into the roles that make the most sense for them and their personality type, and then they can hire the rest there with the way the model works, right?
Correct. And plus you're building a little bit of a career path for some caregivers that may be very good organizationally. They could hire and train and oversee caregivers. So there's an opportunity for people to move up within the organization. You could have someone that's going to take care of the after hours, phone calls, et cetera. So there's lots of opportunities for franchisees to build a business that is fully staffed and they can oversee it as well.
Great. What is the top misconception about the franchise? I mean, there's a lot of information out there. Folks come to you, and there's probably these top things that you just think that they know about how everything works. Can we kind of dispel a couple of those myths that, folks come to you? Because I've been doing this a long time, and I know that folks come to me with a certain perception or a certain thought process where they think they know something about how this works, and then they talk with you, and, you're just like, if you're like me, I don't know if you are, but I'm chomping at the bit because I know what they're going to ask me and I know how to answer it already. Can we talk about like what the top thing is that they think they know about the way you guys do business?
I'm going to answer this probably not in a way that you were expecting. So I would have to say that most people really don't know almost anything about senior care. they don't have a misconception because they have no concept of how an agency runs until they need it. And then they get a hard lesson really fast.
Sure.
So I would say some of the things that I've seen as objections come from people who want to run a small organization with just a few employees, which I get. But this business, as it scales, as I mentioned, the folks in Naples, Florida, with 170 caregivers, sometimes that the thought of that kind of blows their mind that they could have that many employees. But it's a different environment because there's not 170 people in one place all working together. It's all spread out because this is a very scalable business. So I think if there was a misconception, it would be how scalable is this business? This business can really, really grow, even just from one territory. Our territories are typically have a minimum of 30,000 seniors. And the office in Naples, over 13 years, has serviced only 5,000 seniors, less than, 20% of their, well, actually, in Naples, Florida, they have probably well over 50,000 seniors. In fact, the joke is that old people live in Miami, and their parents live in Naples.
Right.
There, I had to get at least one joke in on the call. So there you
go. Yeah, well, that's okay. You could throw more in there. You know, one of the things that I picked up on what you just said there is that a lot of folks have some form of an event or a need, and that's kind of what almost attracts them to the industry. And I can personally attest to this. My wife's mother, a few years back, we went through what you described, right? We went through the talking to different companies and not being able to find a spot and not knowing what we didn't know. You know what you know. You're pretty sure you know what you don't know. Like, I don't know how to speak Chinese, right? But I know that what I do know. But the thing that a lot of folks will struggle with when they go through this is you don't know what you don't know about how all this works, right? That was the frustrating thing for us. And, I'm a pretty savvy business guy, and I'm talking to all these folks, and it just seemed like they're using terminology and talking about different processes and how things work, and it was just overwhelming. And then we found someone local. It was a franchise placement service, and they helped us, and they found a place for my wife's mom. And then that spot didn't work out from a care level. It wasn't the spot we were looking for long term. And then they helped us find another spot. So we went through it 2 different times over a 2-year period. And I can tell you from personal experience that it was way different working with someone that knew exactly how it all worked versus someone, meaning us, that had no idea what we didn't even know about the industry, right?
Right, absolutely.
Can you share with us what's that?
I'm sorry for that. I was just going to say during COVID, we had quite a strong growth company-wise. We grew over 20% gross revenues in the 1 year. And a lot of it was due to people pulling family members out of assisted living facilities.
Sure.
As well as sending in caregivers where the family member needed to stay in assisted living, but the level of care was strapped. And so we picked up, and plus the family members could not go visit their loved ones. And so we picked up companion care cases as well. So
that's interesting. A lot of folks ask me that question too, like how did things go for this company or that type of company through COVID? I'm glad you brought that up. Now, that kind of leads me right into, this is a growing industry, of course, so I think I already know the answers you're going to give here, but why should somebody consider getting into this industry, like as a whole, looking at all the different things that they can do? Why should they look at getting into the assisting hands type industry?
Well, the top 3 industries are, and I know it sounds self-serving, but are seniors, kids, and pets. And in the senior space, there are 10,000 people a day turn 65 in this country. The silver tsunami coming at us. I'm near the end of the baby boomers, born 61, and there are 78 million baby boomers, and the oldest of us isn't even 75 yet.
Right.
So it hasn't even begun to scratch the surface of the opportunity. So why get into the industry? One reason is because the growth of this industry and the clients is just absolutely astounding. And then the other thing that I hear a lot from people who are looking to do a move and transition out of what they're doing is they want to do something that contributes, that means something in their community, to give back, even that perhaps to create a legacy business for their kids to be involved in, but they want to do something that really contributes to something positive society. And the impact that caregivers have, not only on the lives of seniors, allowing them to age gracefully in their home and their familiar surroundings, which statistically also helps in their health immeasurably, but also they have the opportunity to impact the lives of their family members of the seniors that are receiving the care. Sometimes our caregivers are giving a respite. The primary caregiver might be a family member, and we're giving a break to the caregiver because they can burn out incredibly, and it can be very tough health-wise on the caregivers themselves, the family members. So we also provide respite care as well. So people just want to do something that leaves a legacy and has an impact on people's lives. That's what I hear every day from people coming out of corporate America.
That's interesting. You said that about kind of giving the family member a break and looking at it that way, because we experience that as well. It's very difficult with all the needs, especially when you have to prioritize and you're working a full-time gig and you've got a lot of different things going on, and then all of a sudden there's this full-time need here with someone now living with us because my wife's mom moved in with us, and then we would want to go on a trip to, say, Atlantic City to the beach for the day, and it was very restricting. And what we did was we hired a caregiver to go along with us on the trips, just as that extra set of helping hands, the assisting hands, right? And
thank you. Thanks for correcting that.
It was the no, I meant it in the way of I meant it in the way to give us what we needed in assisting us. Was very, very helpful for that, because it was basically a lifestyle change, right? You want to do this, you want to do these things for the people that you love, and she was living with us, and we provided really good level of in-home care personally for us. My wife had the bonus benefit, whatever you want to call it, of not having to work full time, right? And he periodically had to hire someone in to provide those services in-house temporarily, and then when we would go on different day trips and stuff like that. So I never really thought about that until you just said that, because it definitely made an impact on our lives personally as well, having that service available. Let me ask you on the areas, right? What are a couple of target markets for you? Where would you like to hear from someone from? There's probably lots of great markets available, but where are the top 2 or 3 or 4 places in the country you'd love to hear from somebody?
Well, we're definitely looking to get into Middle America, into St. Louis, Kansas City markets. We have great opportunities in Texas. All of the area rep positions have been awarded in Texas, but we have some great territory: San Antonio, Austin, Dallas, Houston, great markets down there in Texas. Florida, one might think that's sold out, but we have great opportunities down in Miami, Orlando area, Jacksonville, and of course California areas as well. And Tennessee, I would say, would be another one. Sorry, I did more than 2 or 3, but
that's okay.
But Tennessee, we have a new area rep in that market.
That's good. Yeah, as long as you're not joking about it, that's fine. What does the due diligence process look like? When somebody wants to research the company, they reach out to you, they've raised their hand and said, Dan, I'm interested. What are the first 2 or 3 steps that they go through to kind of learn more? How do you guys do it?
So we have 5 steps, and our first step is what I call qualification, and that's where we're just talking. And by the way, people are going to find me to be much more of a tour guide type of person. I hate pushy salespeople. They drive me insane. So this is more just a mutual, like you say, a due diligence or a discovery journey, just to see if it might be a good fit personality-wise. If you're familiar with the 80-20 rule, if from GE, 80% of your sales come from 20% of your clients. In franchising, the 80-20 rule for a franchisor is 80% of their headaches come from 20% of the franchisees they never should have let into their system. So We're very selective about who we bring in. We take our time. We had about a dozen franchisees a year. It's a good pace for us.
Okay.
But we just want to make sure that it's a good fit. So the first part's the qualification, and that's where we get to know each other and find out, a little bit of background. But we really focus on the why senior care. We really want to understand that heart for the business and what the interest is there. And we'll do an overview, a little bit longer of what you and I talked about today, but we'll talk about the differentiators, how the agency is set up, et cetera. We'll talk about our onboarding. And then we disclose with the disclosure document, the FDD, and we go through that document to get the questions answered there. Then our third step is an operations call, or we call it Day in the Life. And we do that with one of our folks from the operations, they're a VP or director, and we go through the state-specific requirements for where the person is looking to open the location. So they have an understanding of licensure costs, timelines, renewals, how long is it going to take to get the license, what credentials do their staff have to have. So it's a really good overview of what it's going to be like to open in that particular state. Then our fourth step is validation. We're then now armed with all this information from the FDD and from me and from our ops person. Now they can validate this information by talking to franchisees from around the country, locally or anywhere in the country, anybody they want to talk to. We validate very well. We don't have anybody that ever comes back and says, wow, your franchisees can't stand to be part. As a matter of fact, we've been winning for years awards from Franchise Business Review on franchisee satisfaction. So we're very excited when someone gets into the validation phase because they're going to hear some great stories. But the fifth part, the last step, is our most fun part, and that's called Discovery Day. Some people call it Meet the Team Day, et cetera. And our Discovery Days are in person. They're in Idaho and may involve riding a horse.
Wow. That's my kind of Discovery Day, buddy. I'm telling you.
Our CEO and his family live on a working ranch in Middleton, just north of Nampa in the Boise market. And they have a son who's a nationally ranked roper. He's 15, nationally ranked. And so they have a full roping arena with horses and cattle and goats and an alpaca named Napoleon and all that stuff. And so anyway, we fly out the day before and we have dinner at the ranch. We saddle up and ride around the property, watch a roping demonstration. One time I got on a quad runner and they roped me as I took off out of the chute.
Hey,
we just have a lot of fun.
If you said there was horseback riding and fishing involved, I might be thinking about buying an assisting hands home care franchise, okay? Because
I will tell
things I love to do.
I will tell you our area rep that handles Idaho and Oregon, Washington is an avid fisherman and hunter. And so if you want to come out and just live off the land for a few days, be my guest. Not my cup of tea, but that's all right.
That's great.
But anyway, then we have, I'm sorry, that's just before Discovery Day, but that's a very important part for us to get to know the people on a personal level. And then the next day, of course, is meeting the rest of the national team to really, it's almost like kind of like a final interview, basically. And then the person goes home and the national team gets together and says, okay, is this candidate part of the 80% or the 20%? And if they get approved, they send an approval letter, and then they pay sign the franchise agreement, pay the franchise fee, and then our whole onboarding process, which I didn't even get into, but we have a whole, like a 12-week onboarding process that helps the franchisees get up and running and licensed and training in Miami and all that. So that's our 5 steps: qualification, disclosure, the FDD, our operations call, state-specific, validation phase, and then Discovery Day. So it takes 60 to 90 days as usual time frame. We take our time, get everybody, make sure to get all the questions answered.
Well, Dan, what I picked up there was, and it goes back to what you were talking about earlier, is you not only want to make it the right fit for everybody involved, but it's the, what did you mention? What was the term used, FOFO? Where you're...
FOFO, yeah, family of franchise owners, yeah.
That's it, right. Family of franchise owners was you're really looking to get to know the folks, because I will tell you, I talk to a lot of franchise companies, and I mean a lot of franchise companies. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say, hey, let's come over for dinner for Discovery Day and we're going to go ride horses, okay? Because, it's just not something you would normally hear in the franchise world. A lot of times you're coming to headquarters, you're coming to corporate, the horse and pony show. It's just a different kind of horse and pony show, right? And then and then you hear everything good, and that does work for a lot of franchise companies. But what I'm picking up on is one of the differentiators here is that you're looking for those folks that are looking to do business with people, right? That's what I'm picking up on. It's, people do business with people, but in this case, it's something that you guys are taking to heart here, is what I'm hearing, right?
It's exactly right. That's a great summary, what you just said.
Can we talk just a little bit about, you mentioned a little bit about the onboarding, not too much necessarily on the onboarding, but just overall, how long does it take to get open for somebody? They've gone through the due diligence. They're 60 days. Everybody's happy. We're shaking hands, ready to finalize everything. Everything's finalized. That's day one now. On average, how long is it taking somebody to truly actually get open?
It's completely state specific. So we've opened as quickly as 60 days in Michigan and Ohio, and we've taken 10 months in Maryland. It all depends on the state and how long it takes them to process the application.
Moving at the speed of government, right? Yeah.
I like that. That's good. And COVID did take a hit in some states where they had some reduced, like people were working from home, and so it took them a little longer to do some processing, et cetera. But for the most part, I would say in a normal state, other than like Maryland, which like I say is about 10 months, Nevada's like 8 months. But most states we can do, it's usually somewhere between 3 to 6 months. And again, it's totally reliant on the state licensure requirements. But about 30 days before the license goes live and they can open their doors, they'll go to training down in Miami. Of course, people will say, well, if your headquarters in Idaho, why did you train in Miami? And our joke is we only want to make you go to Idaho once. I'm just kidding. It's beautiful up there.
What from the numbers side about the cost? What is just generally, because I know how the franchise documents work, can you give us an idea, generally speaking, what somebody's going to invest in the franchise to get it up and running?
So our FDD discloses the investments between $80,000 and $152,000. We feel comfortable if someone has about $100,000 liquid capital, $300K net worth, and very important, can cover their personal expenses for 12 months while they're ramping up. Ideally, and by the way, all of our top franchisees are couples that are working the business, interestingly. And in almost every case, one started the business while one of them stayed employed with benefits, et cetera.
Sure.
Until they ramped up and then the other joined. But the 80 to 152,000 with about 100,000 liquid, 300K net worth, and that includes the franchise fee, of course. We have a pretty low overhead kind of business. However, the office is small, 700 to 900 square feet, so it's not like opening a restaurant where you've got $200,000-$300,000 or more of build out and all that. It's a very low cost franchise, not only to get into but to operate. The caregivers are employees. I think I forgot to mention this before. They are W-2 employees. We don't send contractors into people's homes. So they're all licensed, bonded, and insured, which is another differentiator for us. However, the caregivers are just paid when they're on the clock, so they're not salaried. They're hourly.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. And I like that.
I should mention, sorry, if there's someone who's interested in becoming an area rep, the costs are a little bit more because you're now securing a territory typically between 4 and 6 million in population. And so we charge per head, so it's somewhere between $260 and $390. And that includes the franchise fee for their first unit.
Well, that makes sense because they're really buying a true area then at that point to develop the entire area. So it's a different scale of investment. One thing that you mentioned there, Dan, though, too, that I want to just retouch on, because I talk to a lot of people about this topic specifically, because as you do, because I know I get this question all the time, and you get this question, how long to break even? How long till I make money, right? We've got to follow the rules on all that stuff. But something that comes up that I make sure to bring up to everybody that I'm working with in franchising is the phrase you said, about how do we pay those personal bills for that first year or so, right? Because that, I bring this topic up with folks I'm working with, Dan, because having that scenario in place is so beneficial to everybody involved, because it allows the new business owner to make smart business decisions versus business decisions based on who's going to pay my mortgage, right? You can You can set that foundation of a new franchise location so much more solid that allow you to grow over time and build a real, true financial asset if you're making smart business decisions, which is honestly one of the reasons you buy a franchise, is so you don't get it wrong until you get it right? And
exactly.
You guys have already taken the black eyes and the bloody noses, but I really like that one thing you mentioned there about, how are they going to pay, whether it's the spouse working a full-time gig and paying the bills, or do we have a X amount of capital that we've earmarked for this as the business ramps, and you can make those smart business decisions. Just something I have a very in-depth conversation with people, because I get asked, how long does it take to ramp this particular business up, right? And so then I talk with them about investment and time frames and what we're allowed to talk with them about, and then I also then add that into the conversation. I'm really I'm up pacing around right now, because this is one of my pet peeve things, is that folks, a lot of times when they're exploring franchise ownership, they only consider the business side of things, and they don't think long enough or hard enough into that personal side as well. And nobody wants to be 6 months into a brand new business and wondering how their mortgage is getting paid, right?
And it's not fair to them, and we won't do that to someone. We've turned people down or said you need to go get a partner or whatever. We're not about just putting pins on a map. We're about making sure that we provide a solid business opportunity for someone who is properly qualified and has the right expectation. They can certainly, during validation, in fact, after the operations call, I send an email out with sample validation questions to ask. Some are very obvious, things like, how long did it take you to get cash flow positive? Did you have any unexpected expenses? How was the training pre and post opening? My favorite question is, would you do it again?
Yep.
That's a great question. But they can find out how, what the experience has been. It's not that a franchisee can't pull money out of the business in the first year or so, but we just don't want them to have to.
Yep.
So
And that's exactly
again,
what I'm.
To your point. Yep. To your point. Yep.
That's exactly what I was talking about, making those smart business decisions and focused on growing the business versus worried about what's happening over here personally, because that's going to pull them in multiple directions. Now, I want to give you the last word here, Dan, and just give us just an overview. I think I already know what you're going to say, but I want to give it to you here at the end, and make sure you let folks know how they can reach out to you guys too. But give us the why franchise with Assisting Hands Home Care.
Well, if you have a heart for seniors, for giving back to the community, you want to build a business that does well by doing good, you want to be part of a family, you want good support, but yet you want flexibility to run the business according to your own good business decisions, but within a framework that allows you to avoid the mistakes that others have made. And if you can follow a playbook and can be supportive as a family member, we would definitely want to talk to a person such as that.
That's great. And how can folks reach out to you guys? You prefer they give you a call? You want them to go to the website? What would you prefer they do?
They can go to assistinghands.com and click on the franchise link. They can reach me at, I'll give my phone number out here, 480-331-3171. My email is ddurney, D-U-R-N-E-Y, at assistinghands.com. Or, for fun, they can text the word CARE to 888-745-2844.
All right, Dan. Well, we thank you for your time, buddy. And we were just joined by Dan Durney, the Director of Franchise Development with Assisting Hands Home Care. Dan, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. And folks, this is John Henning here with the Franchise Radio Show. You can reach us online at franchisradioshow.com. Thank you so much.